Hello everyone, welcome back to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and today I am going to be learning with you about our furry, scaly, or possibly even slimy friends. And in today's case, it is going to be one of the scaly variety. So that is the tiger snake, as you can probably tell from the title. I am so super excited to get into one of our more rarer sort of scaly animals. I've gotten so used to doing the furry friends. I've gotten so used to doing even the slimy friends, but it is not very often we get a scaly one. So today for the tiger snake episode is a special, very special listener episode dedicated to Greg, who wrote in on Instagram and gave this absolutely amazing recommendation for an animal. So I'm super excited. Now, for those of you that don't follow the Instagram already, I am doing a giveaway as a thank you to all of you. It is for a pet hoodie. So if you have a pet, doesn't matter what size, small, medium, large. I suppose you can't throw the hoodie if you have a pet mouse, but if you have a smaller dog, you can, or a very or a bigger dog. You can enter that giveaway by going to my Instagram at Relax with Animal Facts, and on there is everything you need to know about how to enter that giveaway for that free pet hoodie. Now, I hope that many of you enter because we have so many listeners out there, old and new, and I just wanted to give back to you guys for being such an awesome member, such awesome members of the podcast family that we've built here together. Now, we can all chillax. Everybody, you can lean back in whatever chair you're in. Relax your muscles if you're just sitting if you're laying in bed or just sitting at home, and let's learn all about the tiger snake. So I got my facts from Australian.museum and softschools.com. So I went to two separate websites for the tiger snake, and I'm so excited to get into these little guys. I don't know if I should say little guys. We'll say scaly guys today for the tiger snake. So why don't we just get right into the show? So the tiger snake is a venomous snake that belongs to the family of elapid snakes, and which is also known as Elapidae. That is its classification. And this in Greek means sea fish. And these guys are characterized by being sort of permanently upright, hollow, relatively short fangs at the front of the mouth that channel venom into their prey. So these are not snakes that you want to cuddle with necessarily. And we'll get into more in terms of the danger to humans that these guys pose. But for now, we'll just say that generally you don't want to be getting too close to these guys. And this species is often associated with watery environments such as creeks, dams, drains, lagoons, wetlands, and swamps, and they can also occur in highly degraded areas, for example, grazing lands, especially where there is water and local cover. Tiger snakes will shelter in or under fallen timber, in deep matted vegetation, and in disused animal burrows. A very common thing among many snakes that I have seen before, that we haven't covered on the podcast yet, but I'm very excited to one day cover. Getting these this sort of ground cover from fallen wood, like timber, or from leaves, things like that. It provides them with the ability to use camouflage to their advantage. Not even necessarily camouflage, because they might not have the right colors for it. They would have to be sort of on par with the colors, but it provides them with a means of I suppose, more discreet transportation, right? Instead of being out in the open, they can go underneath timber, underneath burrows, things like that. And unlike most other Australian elapids, tiger snakes climb well on both vegetation and human constructions, and have been found as high as 10 meters above the ground. So the fact that many snakes can climb, is not very comforting to me. The fact that you could be walking around and they can just fall on top of you. I don't mean to scare anyone out there. I know everyone's trying to relax, so excuse that little aside. But they can go as high as 10 meters above the ground, which is fairly interesting, considering the fact that when you look at the anatomical structure of a snake, how it actually, propels itself upwards to go up a tree, I think is super interesting. The major threats for the survival of tiger snakes in the wild are habitat destruction, something that we see over and over again just because, as humans normally do, in terms of human intervention, we like to build things, and in the place of where forest used to be would be, certain sort of man-made things that we see all the time. So the main thing is habitat destruction, traffic accidents, and as well as intentional poaching of the snakes. Poaching is obviously a big problem among many, many species. It is more prominent in different areas around the world, but that makes the tiger snake classified as vulnerable, which means that it can become endangered in the future, which is not something, even though these guys are fairly not the cuddliest, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to do what tiger snakes do, which in this case I suppose is climb trees and go hide under timber and things like that, the things that we just learned tiger snakes do. So the common name, which is the tiger snake, refers to the prominent yellow and black cross bands typical of some populations of tiger snakes. However, not all of them have this pattern. It is pretty common in many species to have this sort of differentiation of colors and not necessarily, I suppose, stripe structure and stuff like that, but we're talking more in terms of the color. The most commonly seen form is going to be a dark olive brown to a blackish brown with off-white to yellowish cross bands that can vary in thickness. So we can see that the stripes can be there, but the stripes are going to vary in thickness and in that sort of size, which is really interesting to me. And entirely patternless individuals may occur in banded populations, and these types range in color from yellowish brown to black. So right there, you can see that I made an unfair assumption that that only their color changes. Not, I imagine that stripes will always be there. But here we can see, even in the same paragraph in this article, that I was mistaken, that entirely patternless individuals may occur in banded populations. So sort of like a mutation or a just a difference, I suppose. And some populations consist of almost entirely unbanded individuals, those of the Central Highlands and southwest of Tasmania. Melanism, which is dark body coloration, those of you who aren't that familiar with what melanin is, that is just basically the pigment in your skin. So there are two types of melanin that we have in our skin, and that's eumelanin and pheomelanin. And in general, the more eumelanin that you have in your skin, the darker your skin will be. And people who make more pheomelanin than eumelanin tend to have that lighter skin, also with freckles. And of course, like many other traits, the amount of pigment that you get in your skin is controlled entirely by your genes. The dark body coloration, or melanism, is most strongly developed in populations that are exposed to highly variable weather conditions and cool extremes, such as those experienced at higher altitudes or on offshore islands. So that is just super cool. And this dark coloration is an adaptation that will allow these snakes to absorb heat at a faster rate during the short growing season. So, as many of you are aware, snakes are cold-blooded, okay, as opposed to us human beings who are warm-blooded. We don't need to go and sunbathe to get our body temperature up and rise to a point where we can work optimally and efficiently to the point where we don't degrade and ultimately die. Like in the case of snakes need to bathe in the sun, as do many cold-blooded animals and predators. It is very, very important. We have mechanisms that allow for that allow for us to be warm-blooded, which is an amazing, I suppose, privilege you could say. I would not want to have to go into the sun for a few hours during the day, instead of going to your local, instead of waking up at 7 and going to work. For some people, they would wake up at 7 and then just go lay face down on the lawn for 5 hours. It's a pretty funny world we would live in if we were cold-blooded creatures, but luckily we're not. And the head is moderately wide and deep, and only slightly distinct from the robust, very muscular body. So snakes do have very muscular bodies because every inch of them is covered in that sort of muscle tissue. It's what allows them to have such fine motor control of their bodies. It's when you look at the anatomy of snakes, it really, really is interesting. The neck and the upper body can be flattened to a considerable degree when performing what is called a threat display, which will expose the black skin between the relatively large semi-glossy scales. So this sort of posturing is something that we see very common among many animals. For example, gorillas, for primates, you always got to relate it back to primates with me. But with gorillas, for example, they do things like chest pounding, or they will pound the ground with their hands to show their strength, or they will rip branches out. In the cases of the snakes, they don't really have arms to do that. So what they will do is do this sort of display posture, very similar to that of, for example, a king cobra, where they sit upright and they're able to make this display very wide, make themselves big, and make themselves in this posture that says, back off. Don't come any closer because I am dangerous. And dangerous they are, along with venomous as well. And in terms of how many scales they have, their mid-body scales, so I guess with snakes, their scales are divided into sections, which is, I suppose, a good thing, because then when you have different things like mid-body, ventral, it makes it easier for classification purposes. And the mid-body scales, they have about 17 to 21 rows. Ventral scales 140 to 190. Ventral just means there's two words that are used most often, I suppose, in anatomical terms, which is ventral and dorsal. Dorsal always means back, ventral always means front. So it's the front of the snake, I suppose you could say. And they have a large, squarish frontal shield, not or scarcely longer than broad, which is characteristic of this sort of species. So they have a very large, squarish frontal shield, which is what they use in these displays, I suppose. So very, very cool. If you're wondering how long they are, we're going to get straight into the quick little factoids that we can delve deeper into. The tiger snake can reach 3 to 7 feet in length. So 7 feet in length is a very, very big snake in comparison to many snakes that we have, at least here in Canada. Those of you that live in Australia, I know, shout out to all my Australian listeners, but you definitely know larger snakes than we do here in Canada. But the males typically are going to be larger than the females. And it is not very common among many animal species in the animal kingdom where the female is larger than the male. The males oftentimes are going to be larger. So this is not so much of a surprise. And the tiger snake is a diurnal animal. Diurnal, let's recap what that means. All that means is that they're active during the day instead of at night, which is nocturnal, right? Nocturnal animals operate during the nighttime and hunt during the nighttime. These snakes are active during the day. And the snake will spend most of its life on the ground, which means that it is a terrestrial animal. If we remember, there's different sorts of classifications for these sorts of things. For many primates that we've covered, I don't know if many, but we covered the indri, which is a arboreal animal, which means tree-dwelling animal. And in the case of the tiger snake, it is a terrestrial animal, meaning that it spends most of its time on the ground. But as we covered before, it can climb fairly large trees. They're also able to swim, which would explain their Greek name earlier when we saw that it was a sea fish. So it totally makes sense to me. It is able to swim. It is able to dive. It can spend all of 9 minutes under the water without returning to the surface to breathe. So we have to give them a lot of props for being able to be under the water for that long. And they are carnivores, okay? Carnivores meaning meat eaters. They don't like their veggies. They're not going to eat the Brussels sprouts. They want meat. And their diet is going to be based on a lot of mammals, birds, frogs, fish, and lizards. So we're seeing animals of all kinds of types. We're seeing mammals, we're seeing amphibians, we're seeing reptiles. So these guys aren't too picky, which is, I suppose, a good thing, because then you have more on the menu, right? And the tiger snake is mostly active during the warm summer months, and it will usually rest during the cold winter days, well hidden in the abandoned burrows in the ground inside the logs. So now let's get into the neurotoxic venom. So the tiger snake produces this very strong neurotoxic venom that is used for killing of prey and for the protection against predators. The snake will luckily only attack humans in self-defense if they have to, but the bite can be fatal and the victim should seek medical attention as soon as you can. I suppose if you don't know it's a tiger snake, it's a good bet that if you got bit by a snake, you should probably go see somebody. So that is my rule of thumb, I suppose. Even if I got bit by a garden snake, I'd probably go and have the doctors laugh at me a little bit, but still. I would be searching for whatever antidote I need. So I guess it's better to err on the side of caution than not. And tiger snakes are often classified as aggressive due to the specific cobra-like posture. So we learned earlier how they like to do that posturing, which is sort of a thing that is done among many of the aggressive animals, I suppose, which precedes the attack. So they will often posture prior to attack. They won't just attack immediately. They will threaten and then they will commit, I suppose. The males are going to be aggressive during the mating season. They fight with each other using their heads while their bodies are intertwined, and the winner of the battle gets an opportunity to mate. So here we see interpersonal competition. Interpersonal competition is going to be between two or more members of the same species, while intrapersonal has to do with the individual themselves. It doesn't have to do with anything in terms of the same species. It just has to do with the self. So that if that is a little bit confusing, I can understand. But all you need to know is that when two males fight for mating privileges, which is something that we've seen among many animals, with animals that have this sort of alpha male structure, hierarchy kind of thing. It is called interpersonal competition, okay? And mating season of tiger snakes takes place during the spring, and the tiger snakes are viviparous, interesting word, which means that females do not lay eggs. Instead, they will give birth to 20 to 30 live babies, occasionally up to even 64, during the summertime. And the young tiger snakes need to fend for themselves right at the moment of birth. I always like to relate the animal that we're covering to humans, but in this case, it is going to be a little bit challenging with this specific fact, because us humans need, if we were to fend for ourselves right at the moment of birth, there wouldn't be a human race, unfortunately. So we need sort of rearing. We have this very long process of becoming adults. And in the case of the tiger snake, they throw you in the deep end right away. And that's how nature is sometimes. And the tiger snakes can survive from about 10 to 15 years in captivity, which would mean that they would probably survive closer to 8, maybe 6 to 8 years in the wild. Captivity is always longer, or almost always longer. I can't say that exclusively, because they have sort of access to different sorts of things, to treatments they wouldn't have normally in the wild if they were to get into a little scuffle with another animal or something like that. And the snake's large size, often aggressive defense, and toxic venom makes it extremely dangerous to humans, like we covered a little bit earlier. They are generally shy and will prefer to escape over conflict, but of course, the threat display will come out if they do get cornered. It will hiss loudly as it inflates and deflates the body. And if further provoked, it will lash out and do that forceful kind of bite with their shorter fangs. And it is strongly neurotoxic, as we covered, and it is also a coagulant. So if we know what coagulant just means that it will bunch up your blood. The way blood works, it is susceptible to certain chemicals to becoming super thick and eventually becoming this liquid or this viscosity that doesn't make it good for running through your veins. So it will coagulate your blood and not be very good for you. So of course, seek medical attention immediately if this happens, if you are around any tiger snakes. In my case, I think I'm okay. I have mostly garden snakes over here. If I ever get bit by a garden snake, I will be sure to share that story with you guys. But that is the last and final fact of the episode. Again, for the second time in a row, I managed to ruin why it's named the tiger snake, almost right in the beginning. I am not on a roll with that. But regardless, what a fun episode. For those of you that don't know, since last episode, to try to get myself to pace myself better, I've actually been listening to sort of this smooth jazz track in the background. In the background in my little earbuds, so you guys can't hear it. But it seems to be helping my pacing, and it also seems to help me not say so many ums, like I've gotten a lot of I don't know if I want to say complaints, but people have noticed, right? So I've been trying to do it less, and it seems as if the jazz music is helping with that. For me, it's like magic. So again, for those of you that want to participate in the giveaway, go to Instagram and go to Relax with Animal Facts. There you can also send me your message. You can send me a message for if you want to have your animal on the podcast. This podcast episode was dedicated entirely to Greg. Without these suggestions, guys, this show wouldn't be as much fun to do, and it wouldn't be possible without each and every one of you listening. So go sign up for the giveaway. I want everybody to have a chance to win a pet hoodie. The design is awesome. I just got it in, and you can see them on the website if you'd like at Relax with Animal Facts, and you click on store. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Make sure to follow on Spotify or wherever you are, subscribe, whatever you're doing, all that good stuff. I hope to see you on the next podcast episode with the next animal. Take care.